Hello, listeners and watchers on the video cast this evening. Welcome to White Noise. My name's Marty, and I'm joined tonight with Sam Benson from Sam Benson Miniatures and Simon Sihook. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Hi.
Yeah, so basically we're here to record for a second time after I stuffed up the first recording, and we're going to look at the White Noise painting contest, and we do thank everyone for sending their entries in. It's very much appreciated. Now, just quickly, gents, Sam, I'll start with you, prior Golden Demon winner.
Yeah, got a couple of Golden Demons under my belt, which is good. Far distant past these days, so obviously with the Golden Demon just being pulled from Australia, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I've won a few painting awards. I guess I can paint, I suppose.
Yeah, no, so puts you in good stead to judge. And Simon as well, you're also a previous winner yourself?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, won a couple of times. Got a Slayer Sword one year. I think the second last one. So, but yeah, that's and just trying to think what else. There was Oz Painters. No, Wizards of Oz. That's it. That's how far back it goes. But yeah,
you know how to use a brush.
Yeah. Over the years.
Well, listen, I'm going to throw it out there and say you two are quite possibly in the top three painters in Australia. Let's just go out and say that without sort of, I don't know who else is out there. I'm sure you guys probably know who your local competition is, but let's just roll with that for now. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the entries for the White Noise painting contest. Now, the theme was non-aligned armies, and we've got some great entries here. So what we might do, guys, is we're going to crack straight into it. And looking at the models, and we're going to go through the album that's available on the White Noise website. And the first model up is Stephen Garcia, who ended up winning the entries, the Warcrow entries at Interplanetario, and he's given us a Miyamoto Musashi. Sam, do you want to kick us off? Tell us your thoughts about Stephen's entry.
Yeah, we disqualified this. It was not good enough, really, was it? Not to our standards.
Yeah. Now, we will point out this was disqualified because he did breach the rules of the competition by posting on other places before us. But it is really a gorgeous model, isn't it?
It is, yeah. All jokes aside, I think Stephen's come a hell of a long way in the last few years painting. He started off messaging me for advice, and these days I think it's probably tables turned. You know, I'd be messaging him to ask for advice, I reckon. So, and the speed he paints them at as well. Like he's whipping out a new model all the time. Like there's always something new coming off his desk, and I'm just a bit in awe myself, to be honest.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that if you hadn't been disqualified, this would have been the winner of the competition?
It would have been up there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen,
yes.
That's for you.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Look, command of colour and everything as well is really good. Just the textures he's painted on everything. Different textures on different cloths and things like that. Nice levels of contrast and all that sort of thing. I mean, everyone's going to look at this figure and go, "Wow, that's something special." So, I don't think I need to go into too much, nitty-gritty detail. I think everyone understands this one's a stellar piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Simon, can I ask you what would set this model apart from a very good painted miniature to an excellent painted miniature?
It's just the different surfaces. You've got your non-metallic metallics, you've got clothing, you've got the freehand, and beautifully kind of in proportions freehand. The base with natural foliage as well as kind of tiles, etc. The whole thing just is quite stunning and beautiful. And yeah, if it wasn't disqualified, it would have been my first choice.
Yeah. Oh, well, we do thank Stephen for his entry and congratulate him once again on taking out the Warcrow Awards at the Interplanetario. And we'll just point out quickly that Stephen's going to be painting a miniature for the winner of our one of our Patreon prize supports. So everyone jump on there and have a look. Now, we'll crack straight on. So I'm going to take us through Matt Sproat's Wu Ming model. So we've got a nice sort of blue shaded Wu Ming. Tell us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, with some nice blue there, with some nice good edge highlighting, particularly on the shoulders and that kind of front plate and the armoured plates, kind of very, very defined with that. But probably what I'd look at with this one is you're kind of looking at two colours. I'd probably look at putting some extra colours in. The other one is to add some washes to go a bit dark in the recesses to define the details. And kind of if you look at the hands, that's probably a good example to define the fingers and the hands, particularly where he's grasping the helmet, just to kind of define the difference between the hand and the armoured helmet, parts of in the elbows, around the knees, etc., the pipes around the knees, just to add a darker wash to kind of get into the recesses.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Sam, what do you like about this model?
Pretty similar sort of thoughts to what Simon said, really. I think the level of contrast is pretty nice. In general, the model is fairly well defined, so that's working really well for it. I would echo again that some of the areas could do with some sort of even much darker shading, just to kind of bring out the different panels a little bit more. Sort of even some people will call it sort of black lining. It doesn't have to be black, but just to kind of pop the edge out can work really well. And yeah, I totally agree with Simon's comment on just some other color, some kind of third color in there that just adds some interest to it. So on a blue, I'd tend to reach for a yellow or an orange or something like that as a sort of nice contrast. But yeah, it's a nice piece.
It's a pretty dark figure looking at it, as in sort of the lighting of it, and you can tell it's dark, it's heavy, it's strong. So would that yellow or orange that you're suggesting, would that be sort of a darker shade, or would you sort of go contrast it with something really bright?
You can go either, really. I mean, my using the ISS that I did had a black armor, so really dark overall, and then it had some white sections, and the yellow I picked for that was quite bright as well. So sometimes the contrast in shade is nice, as well as contrast in color. So obviously with the yellow and the blue being fairly opposite on the color spectrum, that works really nicely as well.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the armored plates or anything being a different color. You could add it as like the glow of like those tech points that the Infinity figures are kind of famous for, glowing light. And that would be enough to kind of a bit of interest and kind of break up the almost monotone or dual tones of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Simon, why don't you take us through Justin Reagan's Bashi Bazook?
Okay, so this one, I've got nice work on the green. It's kind of nicely blended. It's the purples are the part that probably could be blended more. And if you have a look at the wings on it, that's what I'm looking at, is kind of just a bit more blending with regards to the purple on the wings. Probably what could also help would be going to add a darker wash to kind of define the details and kind of pushing the highlights. There's a nice detail on the gun if you have a look at it. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get that picture up. My computer's running slow. So Justin's picked out really nice details on that. So follow that through the rest of the mini, because you're obviously capable of picking out the details.
Yeah. So Sam, what are your thoughts on this model?
Again, fairly similar to Simon, I suppose. What I noticed with the green in particular is it looks like it's got some sort of brown or red tones in it, which is a really nice move. Again, talking about color theory, you can mix some sort of reddish tones into the shadows of green, and it sort of makes it look really nice and rich. Mm-hmm. So that sort of, I can see that's happening a little bit here, and that looks really nice. I'd push the green higher, just that final highlight. Just on the edges of certain plates and things like that to bring them out a bit higher again. Mm-hmm. The purple just overall I find reasonably flat in comparison to the green. I think the green's got quite a lot of contrast in the shading and the highlight, although I would take the highlight further. Whereas the purple, again, especially on the wing, looks more or less the same shade most of the way through, and then it's got some highlights slapped onto it as well. So I'd kind of like to see a gradient across big panels like that, just to add that interest in there. And I think that would really raise the purple sections a bit higher on this piece for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very nice. I really like that model actually. It's I personally I think I like the colour scheme on it. So good work to Justin. So Sam, why don't you kick us off then? We got Michael Moran who sent in a Al Hawa. Tell us about this model.
Yeah, so I don't know much about the model aside from the fact it's in front of me here, but it looks like a Toha guy.
No, I think the Al Hawa is a Hakkaslam.
Hakkaslam, is it?
Oh, so this one's a hacker too, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like a hacker. There's my expertise going out the window.
Or he's taking a selfie.
Yeah, he could be taking. It does look like he's taking a selfie. Actually, that's well picked up.
He's hiding his face though. License down there. I like the colours he's chosen on this. I think that sort of reddish brown with the almost a bronzy sort of colour goes well together. Purple hair is a nice sort of contrasting sort of interesting spot colour. I think there looks to be quite a bit of shading going on. Everything's sort of fairly well defined. Looks like a wash has been applied that's sort of bringing out those details and things. I'd probably focus mostly on bringing out some highlights on this to, again, just push that contrast a little bit further and bring out some or lighten the overall mood of the piece as well. But yeah, I mean the shading looks pretty well defined as a starting point, and then I just feel like it needs a bit more highlight and just neaten up some of the areas where the wash has sort of gone over where you don't want it to be and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Simon, tell us your thoughts on this model. Do you think it might suffer a little bit from the photography?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. But I think, as Sam said, and I agree with what Sam said, I like the choice of colours. It's got a real desert military colours, and you can see that he's used a couple of different browns for that, so it's quite suiting for a Hakkaslam model. So good. It's a good start there. And he's used wash, and it's quite heavily, so it has defined the detail. But how to define it better would, in my opinion, would be to work on pushing the highlights to, the lines on the pants, the knee pads, the little bits of armor, that kind of stuff. That will kind of define the detail more, because you got the depth now. Go for the light. The other thing I was going to mention is basing. Basing tells a story. I know it doesn't have to be fantastic. It doesn't have to be a work of art, but you could put some sand and some dead foliage or something like that, and we kind of tell the story, and that would kind of push that one a bit further as well. Yeah.
No, I agree with that completely. But no, good job, Michael, there. Now we're going to move along, and Sam, I'm going to crack this one off with you as well. What stands out to this model here? Because this is a Liam Tennant CSU, and to me, that base looks magnificent.
It does not look good. Isn't it a nice base?
It is a very nice base.
I wonder where you got that from.
Yeah. So, so give yourself a bit of a plug quickly. Where does the base come from?
So that there would be a Drop Bear Workshop concrete topper with a F2E line of fire disc attached to the bottom of it.
All right, and they're from Drop Bear
Workshop. Yep.
Drop Bear Workshop.
So Drop Bear Workshop. That's fine. So we're just sort of starting up, and basically we've got a couple of base designs at the moment. We're going to expand the range as we get the time to develop them and that sort of thing. But basically, starting off with bases. Casting in resin, trying to get a really nice high quality cast out of it, and some interesting designs so far. I think the concrete's about the only time I've seen a base like that, so people are really responding quite nicely to that, and Liam's one of the first customers, so thank you, Liam, for the support.
Yeah, so I'll just mention quickly, so what's nice about this is you can move the base around. So if you've got a big awkward model with arms that stick out over it, you can flip the base around to the bottom so you can keep your facing or mark your facing where your model's going to fit into the core of the building.
Well, the CSU here is actually a pretty good example because she's got a briefcase gun sticking out one side and her other hand sticking out the other side. So she's got two parts of her model sticking out over the base, and it just means that you're kind of restricted to either facing her, bodily towards the wall or away from the wall. And if your line of sight wants to be anything but directly towards the wall or directly away from the wall, if that's even how you've drawn it on, a lot of people would draw on a line of sight sort of facing the way her head's looking. Then you're in even more trouble. Then you're kind of stuck and you're jamming your model in against terrain and scratching the paint and that sort of thing. So the whole idea with it is that red part of this base will spin independently of the rest of the base, and you can just fix the line of sight to however it needs to be in whatever situation she ends up in, and keep on fighting.
Yeah, now fantastic. Now I'll tell you what I like about this model personally is I think the facial features really stand out for me as well detailed and quite realistic. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, look, I didn't mean to totally take all of Liam's thunder there. I actually think this is a really nice piece. I think Liam's done a great job. And again, Liam's one of these guys who I think is improving all the time. He's messaged me a few times and asked me for some advice on various figures he's been working on, things like that. So I'm going to stick my hand up and say I can take some credit for it. But Liam's a great guy, and he's his painting's improving model by model, and you can really see what he's pushing on this figure as well. So, he's attempted some sheer clothing on the stockings here of this figure. White is just a hard colour in overall. He's got blacks with really nice bright highlights. I mean, look at the highlights on that briefcase gun; looks really nice. And also not just one colour, one shade of black. There's a couple of different kind of shades in there, with blues or more of a neutral palette as well. So I think all that sort of thing is looking really good, and he's definitely coming along with his painting with every figure. Yeah. Face is great, as you said. I really like the highlights on the tunic. You can see the shadow under the breast and that sort of thing. And it's looking really good. So another really solid piece.
Yeah, no, good work, Liam. Simon, we've heard some pretty positive comments there from Sam. What do you think Liam could do to take this model to the next level?
We'll start with the positives. I think the stockings were really great. I think it was did a particularly good job on the stockings, and that sheer clothing look can be quite hard to achieve, and done a fantastic job on that. And as Sam pointed out, there's the really nice highlighting on the gun case or the gun. The bit that probably there's a little bit on the right leg that possibly it could be the photograph, but there's just a little bit of blending on that right leg when you're looking straight on it. And the white, just a little bit, and white's really hard because you can only go to pure white as the highlight. It's just not quite as sharp as, say, comparing the white on the body to the gun case. But look, that's quite minor. It's done a really good job.
Yeah, no, I really like that model. The model itself, the profile, and I like your paint job, Liam. So good job to you. Now, we'll keep cracking on. We've got Jacob Jerhas, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, who sent in a brawler standing on a tactical rock. Simon, why don't you take us off with your thoughts on this model?
Yeah, it's an interesting scheme. It's kind of it's gone away from the more traditional kind of military-looking one with this kind of really turquoisey kind of scheme, and it's done a good job. Nice job on the aqua, nice highlights. My only thing would be to possibly push some of those highlights a bit further, and also probably like some of the placements, like on the backpack of the highlights. Just looking at kind of tidying those up a little bit. Possibly for me, I may have kind of chosen a separate colour for, say, the shoes and a couple of other little bits, like, say, the shoulder pad, just to break it up, even if it was to use the aqua, but to add a little bit more blue so it looks like a different kind of material. It's an aqua, but it's a different material and has a slightly different tone.
It is a very blue model. Sort of makes me think that maybe it's going in to fight against Varuna or something similar. Sam, what are your thoughts on this model?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the colour scheme used as well. I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting to use a green sort of shade on that blue, so it's sort of transitioning the colour as well. It's not just a flat blue that's been highlighted with white and shaded with black. I would agree with Simon's comments on the boots being something that kind of stand out a little bit. There's straps and things across the back, and knee pads and that sort of thing that all painted different colours, and then the boots are the next obvious thing that you'd sort of think might be a different colour and have a lot of little details on them that seem to be lost because they're just one flat sort of colour.
Yeah.
I think, again, pushing highlights further, I'd probably push some shades deeper with this one as well. And yeah, just being mindful of where those brush strokes land on the highlights, making sure that you're hitting that edge if you want an edge highlight, things like that. Yeah.
Jacob, I really like the way you've done the face of the helmet. I think that stands out. Yeah. I think it looks really cool. It looks like either it's got a bit of battle damage or there's some head-up display stuff going on there. So bit of a good job from me. Not that I'm a busted up when it comes to painting, but it's my 2 cents. Now, the next model we've got is a bust, and this was sent in with prior permission. So if you do want to do something a little bit different, feel free to write into the show, and Ben and I will let you know. But this is sent in by Gavin Bateman. Simon, tell us about this model. What do you think?
Well, Gav's done a great job on this one, and kind of Bus is we're looking at 28mm miniatures normally for Infinity, but we're looking at something bigger, and it needs to be approached differently. And he's done a good job, a good job on the bust. There's a couple of little bits that you have to be careful of because of the size of it. I suppose it's like, say, painting a tag or something like that. Is your blends need to be a lot smoother, and that kind of thing needs to be carried across onto a bust because you're looking at it in a larger scale, and the details are easy to see. So, for example, like there's some blending on the blue on the shoulder could probably be blended a little bit smoother. Also, some of the edge highlights kind of thing. It just because of this, and I'm just saying this purely because of the size. The bust is a larger medium that needs to be extra more detail and kind of care with regards to those kind of edge highlights.
Have you ever painted a bust yourself?
I have a while back, yeah. And I found, it is it's kind of, as I said, it's like the difference between painting an infantry miniature and a tag. You need to kind of spend that extra time, what you might spend a night painting up, say, the pants on a figure. You may spend that whole night painting just one arm or something, or one panel kind of thing to kind of get that blend.
Mm-hmm. Sam, tell us your thoughts on this model.
Yeah, so again, I think Gav's done a pretty good job of the bust of being a totally different thing. And I don't think Gav's painted busts before either. I don't recall him posting any or anything like that anyway. I'd like to point out things like on the left-hand side of her backpack, there's that sort of piece of metal there. It's like a metal grate, and like how that's highlighted up and the sheen that's got looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. So he's nailed some areas, and then again, just probably let down a little bit by some of his smoothness on some of the other areas. Again, being a larger figure means you need to be spot on with the smoothness. You need to put that extra effort into blending a little bit better than you would on a 28mm figure.
Yeah.
I think one other thing I'd point out on this would be in the abdominal armor, where it looks like the edge of that orange armor is painted sort of that dark blue like the undersuit.
Yes, no, I can say that. Yep.
That was part of the armor rather than part of the suit. So little things like that where it looks like it could be an overpaint rather than thoroughly intended.
Yeah.
Is the other thing. Yeah. So I think overall it looks great. Just probably not as smooth as what we would have liked to see on a larger figure like this.
Yeah, no, okay, no problems at all. Well, listen, really good job there, Gavin. I liked it myself, and hopefully the bus has got a bit of pride of place somewhere at home. Now, we're going to move along to Rob Cantrell. Now, this is a Krakot Renegade proxy. Once again, it was requested by prior permission, so I'll reiterate, if you do want to do something a little bit different, please write into the show and let us know. I'm going to start off by saying, Rob, I love this miniature. I think it looks good, it looks tough, it looks bad. He looks dark and scary, and he's really pulled this off well, I think. Sam, what do you think about this model?
Yeah, I'm really digging the dark feel to it. It feels dark, but again, it's got those highlights to make it just not a dark blob on the tabletop. Yeah, so you can actually see the parts of the figure, and that's a bit of a skill that's a learned skill. I think I bang on about all the time when I'm talking about painting. I bang on about getting the contrast up and making sure you've got the contrast, you've got those bright highlights because you need it. And Rob here has nailed those. I really like the scheme in general. I think it's a really nice sort of dark greeny kind of almost like a night feel. I think his highlight placement's really good. If I'm being picky, and I have to be on this one, because it is a really nice figure, I'd probably say things like the gun feels like it could have some more gradient in it rather than just being pure black and then almost pure white on the highlight and nothing sort of building up to it. So just a little bit more gradient worked up on the black of the gun would be something I'd like to see. Otherwise, like I said, this is a pretty hard figure to pick out things to comment on. Really, it's really nicely painted.
Yeah. So Rob unfortunately didn't win, but he came damn close. I think it's fair to say. Simon, what do you think about this? I'll tell you what I do like with this as well. I like the base. It almost feels like he's almost underwater, don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier with regards to basing, and it kind of tells a story. For me, it doesn't feel like it's underwater. For me, it feels like he's on a night mission and he's kind of crossing no man's land, and nice. Some kind of flare's gone off and it's lighting up in front of him, and he's dark and he's menacing, and all of a sudden, out of this darkness, this blade comes slicing out, and kind of, you're in trouble when this guy's rocked up. The color, the darkness, the brooding kind of feel of this has really hit the nail on the head for me. I really love this miniature. Yeah,
no, very nice at all. Anything that's different from what Sam said about where you think it's sort of just fallen short, maybe?
Possibly, as the only thing that is what Sam said with regards to the gun. Probably push those kind of, it's gone from black to white almost, and just push on, blend that more, so to speak. Yeah. But apart from that, like I find trouble finding anything wrong with this one. Yeah. Even just like there's a shot of looking across. And there's like the red panels on his forearm almost look like a red chrome. It's done a really nice job.
Yeah, no, very well done, Rob, to you. So thank you for your entry. We've really enjoyed it. So we've got Mark Quaglia's Oroi next. So Simon, why don't you continue on and tell us about this model?
It's good, neat painting. Like, it's done a really good job in kind of blocking in all the colours. It's neat. The base is interesting. It's got a bit of a story to tell. It's got some glowing elements in the base, those kind of things. What I'd probably look though is needs to show more depth and more highlights to those colours. So next time, push the depth, so push the shading and push the highlights, because particularly looking at the gun just looks like it's all one color. You could add some different panels, you could add some metal bits to the magazine, but also pushing those highlights and the shadows so that you get more definition.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of agree with that. With like I said, I've got no real talent, so but I can see what you mean. I'm looking at the figure, and it's sort of very, without trying to be harsh, a bit monotone. Sam, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mentioned this on a previous figure, and I think it's just as valid on this one. I'd like to see some other colour on it. In the studio scheme, they use a bit of white and that sort of thing to block out some of the panels. But you could use a different colour if you want to branch out into something yourself as well. I think that as Simon said, the painting itself is neat. Neat enough. There's no sort of terrible overbrush or anything like that. It's all pretty neat and tidy looking. For me, it's just lacking the contrast. It's lacking that deep shadow. It's lacking that bright highlight that would really make a figure like this one pop. Do notice on the side-on figure there with there's a bit of a sort of blue glow coming off the eye area, and
Yes.
that looks really nice. There's definitely some evidence of some really nice painting going on here. I just want to see that over the whole thing. I think with the gun, again, sort of this could even go back to Rob's as well, where I was saying there's no sort of gradient. Again, this is one where it's almost black with a sharp edge highlight on some of the edges there, but there's no kind of gradient going through. And if you're going to paint something black or near black, you kind of need that. You need to be able to paint most of if you're painting black, for instance, paint most of it not black so that you've got somewhere to shade, or you don't end up with an interesting or realistic looking piece. You end up with a fairly flat looking piece.
Yeah. Well, there's some good feedback there for you, Mark. So we're going to crack on to a really nice mobile Regatta that's been sent in by Byron Shatzis. Sam, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you've jumped ahead. Yeah, this mobile Regatta is really interesting. I think the scheme's really bold. Not a lot of people, I guess, paint their man dollies in bright pink, and I think it's really pulled off in this case. It looks really, really interesting. The shade and the highlights really nice. The green's a really good complement to the purple. The base is a nice sort of complement as well, making sure that figure kind of steps off the base, if you like. And again, contrast in the gun, everything's nice. I think my main criticism on this is probably going to be around, there's a couple. Photography as being one of the big ones, and the white areas look a bit flat, so look more or less white, not enough deep shadow, and probably not enough gradient going on.
Okay. Simon, what are your thoughts on this model?
Yeah, really nice work on the purple. It's kind of interesting too. It's like a nomad figure, so it kind of gets that kind of punk kind of, I don't care what color my armor is, I'm going to do it what I want. I'm a nomad. Mm-hmm. So it's done a really nice job on the purple and the underneath bodysuit. Could be, for me, it could be the photo, but the depth of the weapon in the rebases, the depth in the recesses on the weapon probably could be pushed more. It's almost like a grey, maybe to kind of define some of those panels. Armor, weapons, things like that, they're hard, harsh surfaces. So we want to look at defining those panels more so than say a cloak or some clothing where you've got more of a softer blend. With those hard surfaces, you want to define them to give it that feel that's a harsh edge. Mm-hmm. Nice work on the base too. I kind of like that sandy color with the purple. It makes that purple stand out even more.
Yeah, so no, I'd agree with you once again completely. So listen, great work on that, Byron, and thanks for sending it in to us. So the next one we've got is a Warcore that was sent in by Barton Can, who's one of our local players in our meta here. Simon, what do you think of this model? I think it looks really good personally. I like the colour that he's used. I think the blue looks good, and it looks nice, clean, and looks like a good model.
Yeah, it does look really good, and I think too done a fantastic job on the skin tones. Like you've got, you can see the highlight on the nose, even though you've got the shadow of the cap. So the top half of the face is kind of in shadow, but you've got the tip of the nose which is kind of sticking out. The lipstick really works really well. The blue looks really good. It kind of looks like a UN, almost a UN blue, but it's a Warcore, so press.
Yeah, and I like that sort of juxtaposition there, because the UN is sort of meant to be neutral, and I suppose the Warcores are meant to be neutral as well.
Yeah, probably where I would look at is depth in the hair. And hair's really hard to do, and I'm still working on hair after all these years of kind of, of painting. It's one of those ones that's kind of it's a really hard one to pull off. But where the hair gathers together, where it's all tied back with the hair tie, you could probably go a little bit darker and deeper to kind of give it a bit more depth.
Yeah. No.
base is really nice too. It's kind of like a weathered, rusty base. So running across the battlefield and I think I was talking about one of the other miniatures before about an overall color scheme, but changing like the boots on these are brown. Done a really nice job on the boots as well, but it kind of gives it that different surface, different texture, different material. It kind of breaks it up.
Yeah, no, great job. But Sam, what are your thoughts on this model?
Yeah, Simon didn't leave me much to talk about, did he?
No, well, he didn't. Maybe can you talk us through what do you think about the little? I mean, it's a little bit hard to see from the photos, but what about the remote or the drone that she's carrying? Just looking at the back. I thought
it was a fidget spinner.
Yeah, fidget spinner. Yeah, it does look a bit like that.
Yeah. Look, I think he's done a really good job on that as well. It's got some battle damage, sort of wear and tear on it, the looks of it. The color choice being, white's always a hard one to paint, but just the choice of the shade color and everything to make it look a bit sort of grimy as well is really nice. I was going to mention I like the fact that he's painted the figure blue, so all the fatigues and everything is blue, all the harder armor plates are blue as well, but he's chosen 2 different shades of blue, and that's all you need to break things up. So, if you've got a figure you want to be red or blue or whatever, you can just do 2 kind of distinctly different shades of the same color, and it works really well. I love that this is clearly someone who's starting to think about bringing painting up to that next display level type painting level. Yeah, so Bart's got things like a bit of under highlight on the lettering of the word press on that thigh plate. He's got the battle damage painted on. That's freehand painted onto that little drone. He's got the lipstick highlighted. Little things like this add so much to a figure, and I really appreciate seeing that sort of level of detail. I would echo Simon's thoughts on the hair, and blonde hair in particular is actually really difficult to do. Look at real photos of blonde hair and you'll see it's quite shiny, and it's got quite a lot more depth than you kind of think about when you're bringing paints out and trying to paint it. I always find it's useful to bring out a photo, even just bring it up on your phone in front of you or something, just as a reference, just to sort of look at the different shades that you're going to need when you're picking the paints out. And when you're painting that, and like Simon said, hair is really shiny stuff. It's you can almost treat hair like a hard armor plate in terms of it needs to have those sort of bright shiny points almost glinting through it, or it doesn't look like hair. It looks like synthetic wig or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those really hard things, and it's something that I'm also working on. Every time I paint a female figure with a lot of hair like this, I'm going to be sort of really trying to push those sort of, I suppose, cross glints, where you've got a sheen that sort of isn't down the length of the hair, it's across multiple strands. So that band in the hair is catching that light. And a little bit of that going on in this, and I'm seeing that. But again, hair being as shiny as it is does tend to have more of that. I'd also point out that part of that it's going to make that harder is the sculpt itself. The hair on this is not strands defined, it's sort of bulk defined, where you've got big areas of this is a bundle of hair going through, rather than that sort of more finer detailed strand sculpting that you see on some figures.
Yeah. So, well, good job there, Bart.
I was going to mention something too that we talked about in a couple of the other previous miniatures, is the difference between the blending. If you look at that front-on shot of the Warcore, and particularly looking at the leg that's attached to the base, you've got that soft blending for the material of the pants, and you've got that harsh kind of more armor-plated look, and it gives you that kind of the illusion that they're 2 different types of materials.
Yeah, no, great job. So we're going to come to the winner of the contest now, Joachim Forsberg. Really great Shikami model that just oozes class, really. Simon, tell us why this was the winner. What really stands out?
I loved it. It was just brilliant work on the black trousers. Loved the blending of the white on the helmet. All the little bits of detail, like the blue that's on the vest could almost be like a silk. It's kind of really nicely pulled off. That kind of, it's got that sheen to it. whereas you've got the harsh metal, the harsh solid armored plate of the helmet with the chips and the battle damage. The sword, the blending and the colouring and the kind of depth of the colour in the sword, all the way down to the base.
Yeah, no, very nice. Sam, what are your thoughts about this? Was this a clear winner, or was it a very hard sort of decision?
There were a few figures that were up there, sort of alongside this one, but I think this one was decided amongst all of us really that this was the winner, after a bit of discussion maybe. Look, I think that, again, just sort of mirroring Simon's thoughts really, the different types of texture and things are handled well on this figure. You've got hard armor plates that have that harsh sort of transition where you're going from one shade to another really quite quickly, and then you've got areas of the pants where it's a lot softer, for instance, where you've got a black to mid-grey kind of gradient over a larger area, and really it only gets harsh on those folds, which is spot on for material like that. The blending on the sword, though, that could be airbrushed, is really nice. The even just the colour that's been chosen, the colours are really nice. The blue looks, as Simon said, more like a silk or something like that, sort of a bright, shiny sort of fabric, and that's quite hard to pull off. I like that the white or the light colour is that kind of creamy colour and actually goes quite dark. If you look at some of the areas on the helmet there, it's really quite a dark sort of browny grey colour in the shaded sections, and I really like that. I think that's one of the keys to, like painting black, the key is to go to white. Painting white or light colours, the key is to actually shade quite dark as well. It's really hard to pick too many faults on this one, I guess.
Yeah, so, well, listen, very well painted, Joachim. We thank you for your entry. And Joachim did actually donate his prize to charity as well, so big thanks to him. Now,
even more deserved win.
Even more deserved win. Now, Simon, I think the last time we discussed, when I didn't hit the record button properly, we're looking at Simon Schnitzler's Domovoy, and I seem to remember you saying you really enjoyed the painting on this model, but the photography let it down. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's it looks like there's so much detail on this actual miniature, but unfortunately the photographs kind of are out of focus and make it really hard, and kind of overexposed, make it really hard to see that. Like the armor plate, you can see like that yellow armor plate, and there's like the damage to and chipping to the white, the beautifully painted white line down the middle of it. You can see like the boots have got like a leathery tan color. He's got a really interesting tattoo on his shoulder. I'm trying to work out what's going on with his face, whether it's blood, battle damage, bruised, I'm not sure. The cap, which is on backwards, if you look at the back of it, he's painted a symbol onto that. But I would have loved to have seen some better photos of it, because I reckon that there's a lot more to this miniature than we can see in these photos.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I can see what's going on with his face. Did you look at the first photo and it sort of looks sort of normal skin tone, and then the side-on shots, he's got sort of that red skull look from the comics. So, Sam, what are your thoughts on this model?
I think this figure is probably much better than we can see it as being. There's enough clues in this that I'm quite confident in saying this is probably right up there, as one of the best figures in the contest that we've talked about. Texture painting is usually a sign that someone's sort of, again, pushing that painting to the next level. There's freehand on this all over the place that I can make out, but I can't see it properly. I can't see it enough to judge it. That's the problem. I think the only reason this figure isn't potentially being talked about in the top three kind of deal is just because we can't see it. So it's the photography that's let this one down, I think, more than anything. Just in I guess general photography tips, that's going to help a few, because there are a few figures in here that the photography could definitely have been improved upon as well. It's not just this one. I would do things, fairly simple things like lay down a piece of mid-tone grey card or something, use that as your backdrop. Curve it up so the figure's sitting on one side and it's vertical and at the back of it. Things like that can help. Just soft lighting. So if you've got some harsh lights on a figure, it's going to blow it out. Like this one is, the photo's overexposed, but there's still areas that are really quite in shadow. And the reason for that is because it's really brightly lit from above. But if you stick it in a light tent, that's going to help with that. If you don't have a light tent, you can make one with some baking paper and a piece of, just an old box, cardboard box, just cut holes in it, stick the baking paper around it and light that, and it's going to distribute the light much more evenly. People use white plastic bins and just cut a hole in it and dump that upside down on a figure and use that as a light box or a light tent as well. So you don't have to go out and spend big money on these things. You can get away with doing things fairly cheaply. Using multiple lights can help, just to make sure that your lights aren't all on one side of the figure or from the top or whatever. But the light tent's probably one of the big things as well. Yeah. So just simple tricks with the camera can make even just a phone camera better. The other big one I find is just stabilizing the camera. So using a tripod, using a time delay on the device, that sort of thing. Even if you're using a phone, you can time delay the photo. So you can take reasonably good pictures of figures without spending thousands of dollars on a DSLR.
Yeah. Well, Simon, great job. We think it certainly looks good to us. So keep it up, and hopefully we'll see an entry for the next competition. Now we're going to finish up with a entry that still hasn't made it up onto the White Noise photo album, but I will put that up tonight. We've got a Avicenna that was sent in by Hazel Anderson. Sam, have you got it up in front of you? Tell us about this model.
Yep. Yeah, so green dress that looks like it might be a bit sheer. I can see some skin tones sort of coming through that, and that's another sign of a more interesting kind of paint job shining through, which I like to see.
It's a bit of a sexy paint job, isn't it? I mean, you can almost see sort of the breast coming through the dress there. Yeah,
there's a bit of that going on. I think the way that's been painted is kind of emphasising that a bit on the figure. But I guess the figure's sculpted in a way that you can paint it that way quite easily as well, isn't it? Mm. I think that the green on the dress is really nicely done overall. I think my main comment for this would be another one of those contrast comments where just building some more highlights into, say, the hair to make it look shiny, probably shading the metallic bits down, because she's used real metallic on this one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just bringing that depth back into the metallics is something that would definitely improve this piece. And shading the skin as well, I think is a big thing that could improve this one as well. But yeah, it's a really nice solid piece.
Yeah. Simon, you're a fan of real metallics, aren't you? What sets them apart as opposed to using non-metallics?
It's using a metallic. It's a metallic object, so it's using a metallic paint. But saying that, you can't just whack the metallic paint down and just leave it at that. You need to kind of treat it almost like a non-metallic metallic. So, for example, the gold on this, I would start it with a gold, then I'd give it like a brown wash to kind of get that depth, and then go back over it with the gold, and then finally kind of adding a little bit of silver to the gold for those highlights, and kind of giving it that a bit more of an oomph to the metallics. Yeah, and giving it that kind of that light, that shine, that sheen. It's metallic. You can see the sheen on here, but you want to emphasize that because it's on the miniature. So by doing that, by adding the depth to it, and then by bringing it up and giving it that highlight, it will give it more depth and life, and it'll look more like a real life metallic.
Yeah, no, very nice. And any real positives for this miniature that stand out to you?
Yeah, like Sam said, I really love the green of the dress. It's a really interesting color. It's got that sheer, but it's got some interesting blends and colors and kind of tones to it. It's not just all one green color. The skin tone's quite suitable for this miniature. Kind of has that kind of more of a Middle Eastern feel to it, kind of like a more of a darker skin tone as opposed to a European kind of whiter skin tone. I'd be pushing the highlights and adding some depth, like Sam said, just to kind of define different objects within the miniature. Particularly like looking at, say, the feet and the shoes, etc. Kind of that will kind of define those better.
Yeah. No.
If you look at the two pink ribbons, I suppose, that are hanging from the back of her belt, that shows some really sort of nice highlights and shading across, where they're bending in the wind, I suppose. I'd just like to see more of that, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Hazel, you've done a bang-up job there on that Avicenna, and that actually is all the entries we've had for the second White Noise painting competition. Big thanks to everyone that puts the hard work in to paint their models and send them in. We all think they look great, and I hope you've taken some positive feedback out of it. We might just finish, guys, by thanking you for your time for the second time. Sam, you want to give Sam Benson Miniatures and Drop Bear Workshop a bit of a plug?
Yeah, sure. So you can find both of those places on Facebook. Samuel Benson Miniatures is where I put all my painted figures, and I've got a Patreon site if anyone's interested in grabbing downloaded step-by-step guides. There's some video tutorials and things on there as well. All the content's free, so go nuts. If you like what you see, you can always support by subscribing to Patreon, but there's no obligation to do that. Drop Bear Workshop's a brand new sort of startup that me and a mate have endeavoured upon. Simon's actually, you're helping with that as well, mate.
Yep. I did the concrete bases for you, and yeah, they were a hell of a lot of fun to paint up. And I'm utilising some of the bear 2E bases on my JSA minis, so I'm kind of making those from scratch, like I do with most of my bases. So, and painting up some of those desert ones as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. And Simon, anything that you need to spruik? Are you doing any commission painting or anything along those sort of lines at the moment?
No, I don't have enough time to do my own work. So, I'm just helping Sam out doing some painting of the bases and kind of, getting in. And when things calm down, I'm really looking forward to the painting some more Pano Varuna stuff. So, particularly those hallets, those amphibian guys look really cool. I'm really looking forward to having a go at painting them.
No, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to see what the model looks like, actually. So really excited about that. So thinking forward, the next painting contest is going to finish in just under a month. The theme is Silhouette 3 or below. Simon, what are you expecting to see? What model do you want to see someone send in?
Look, I'm just happy to see, like, the beauty of the Infinity range is there's so many beautiful miniatures to paint up that I'm kind of happy to see anything, to be honest. I haven't got any preference. Infinity's kind of that game that if I was playing with a group of people and somebody already had picked the armies that I've got, I'd still think I'd be happy with one of the third, fourth, fifth or sixth choice of armies, to be honest. So, yeah, I've got no preferences. I'm just looking forward to seeing what people come up with. And
Sam, what about yourself?
I just want to see what they're going to come out with, to be honest, mate. They keep hitting it out of the park, really, with the figures that are coming out. I think, I had a few months ago, you thought, I'm never going to collect Aleph. I'll get rid of these figures I've got hanging around. I had a few Aleph figures, and now I have the OS out of the operation box.
Yeah, right.
To a resculpt and things like that. Yeah, so. I mean, I have a little shelf next to my hobby station, and it strains, it buckles under the weight of the metal figures I keep piling up on it. I've had to take things out of their boxes and put them all into, like, package them into single boxes. So I've got a box per army if anyone knows how I paint, you'll be thinking, Sam, but you'll never paint them all. And you're bang on. You're dead right. I am a hoarder, and I'm probably going to collect most of the armies in the range. I'm like Simon when it comes to, if everyone in my group had already chosen armies that I was interested in, I'd just choose one of the other ones because they're all interesting anyway.
Yeah.
I think Corvus are one of the few companies that have really managed to make every force unique enough and interesting enough, and also I guess interesting to me at the same time. There's only a few things that I'm not really interested in collecting, to be honest.
Yeah, no, very nice. Well, listen, I'm not going to sit on the fence. I want to see a Powerbot. So fingers crossed someone will send one in. Listen, gentlemen.
I tell you what I do want to see is I want to see some people that have entered the previous 2 competitions enter again and take on some of the feedback and go, hey, look, remember what he ended last competition? Look how far he's come this time. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be that's more exciting to me than any given model. Having said that, just going to put it out there, a drop bear.
A drop bear?
As well, wouldn't it? Yeah. That's a model.
Yeah, but well,
it's a token.
Yeah, it's not actually. It's a comms device, I think. No, it's a perimeter weapon, I think. So
it is.
Yes. So unfortunately, if you send in a drop bear, you're probably going to get disqualified. So let's not go do a Garcia on us, all right?
What if they say there's 3? Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want to say thank you once again for the second opportunity to speak to you regarding these models. It's been a great